Right. Are we ready? All right. So, about 4 months ago, maybe 5, one of the residents, Nancy Kanegi, forwarded me an article from Substack, and it was about why walking doesn't prevent falls. And I think many of you saw this, and this prompted the presentation. So most of this presentation is based on that. There is a link to the article in my resource notes. It is a very good article, but hopefully we'll cover what you need to know in this presentation also. What we're going to go over is a little bit of anatomy and physiology, because understanding how the muscle works and how it contracts will help you understand kind of the concept of strength, how strength differs from endurance and endurance differs from power. And so that means we're going to talk about the muscle fibers a little bit, and I could spend days just talking the first 2 topics. I tried to keep it real basic. There's some pictures that may be a little overwhelming. Don't worry about it. I'll show you the concept that I just want you to get from that visual. Again, we're going to talk about endurance versus strength versus power. They're very different. And then why walking isn't enough and what things you might be able to add into your program. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start geeking out. So we've got a muscle, and if you look at the picture on the left, the far left, it shows the tendon. So the tendon is what attaches to the bone, and then it forms a muscle. Inside the muscle itself, it's very complicated. We have little bundles of fascicles, and we have bundles of fibers, and we have bundles of spindles. I mean, it really gets down to that cellular level. But the main part of the muscle that I wanted you to understand, because it goes all the way down to what we're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen. And if you look at the yellow arrow, even if you think about my hands as a muscle fiber, when you're at rest, here's the muscle fiber. When it contracts, it shortens. It works like a ratcheting effect. So if you look down at the lower picture, you can see how the gap between the 2 blue lines has shortened. When your muscle contracts, it's kind of like a ratcheting effect, okay? For scientific geeks, the actin and myosin bind together and pulls. And like I said, I could go on forever, but the main thing is to think about, and during this talk today, I may use this visual: muscle at rest, muscle at contraction. Muscle at rest. When you stretch, you try to lengthen the muscle, and then it goes back to resting, or a little bit longer than resting. We call this the sliding filament theory. Basically, there's this sliding action that happens here. Okay? Shorten, resting, shorten, resting. Kind of got a little bit of a visual with that? Okay, so think about that as the mechanical part of the muscle. Then we've got the innervation, the nerves that feed the muscle. A lot going on in this picture. Your brain is up here. We have nerves that run out of the spinal cord that feed the muscle, okay? Feed little muscle bundles. The motor neuron is the signal that goes out from our central nervous system to the muscle. The sensory is the message that goes from the muscle back to the brain. So there's this loop. The motor neuron sends the message that the brain tells us to do. The sensory nerve gives the brain feedback from the body. The main thing to understand is that these nerves, both motor and sensory, feed into the muscle. Again, there's not going to be a test on the pictures, but some people are visual learners, and just getting that little bit of visual can be helpful. And it will be as we continue on. So when we talk about the muscle fibers themselves, those bundles, in the most basic sense, we have what's called slow twitch and fast twitch. Slow twitch may also be referred to as type 1, might be referred to as oxidative or aerobic. So you may have heard it referred in any of those ways. Fast twitch, which is what we typically term type 2 muscle fibers, is more anaerobic or fast glycolic. Those last two words basically meaning it doesn't use oxygen when you need that metabolism from that muscle. That's not what's feeding that muscle. What's feeding the slow twitch muscle is oxygen. Over here, we're using a lot more just pure glycogen or sugar, to simplify that. But if we go through the slow twitch fibers, they're efficient at using oxygen. They have delayed muscle firing. So when you tell that muscle to fire, maybe it goes, okay, I'm gonna fire now. Versus a fast twitch, it's gonna go bam, okay? When that nerve signal tells it to fire, it is gonna be a fast, explosive type of action. The slow twitch usually can go on for quite some time. When you go walk around Green Lake, you are using your slow twitch muscle fibers. You can go on and on and on. If you had, not that you would ever do this, sprint to the elevator, and then you'd get there, and you'd be like, okay, that you used your fast twitch, you got it to activate quickly, and they fatigue quickly. They get tired quickly. Okay, our slow twitch fibers best suited for things like walking, long distance cycling, slow and steady activities. Riding the new step for a half an hour, riding the bike downstairs for a half an hour. Kind of makes sense what activities would fall into that. The fast twitch are more suited for those quick, explosive, just little bursts. Depending on how you get up out of a chair. If you use your hands, you're probably not using fast twitch. You're probably using slow twitch. And we'll talk about that a lot more. If you're going upstairs, you may be using fast twitch. Lifting groceries from the counter up, that's not something you go, okay, I'm gonna bring these up to the counter, right? You're usually like, bam. You're using more fast twitch fibers for that. If you have to pick up your pace and you're crossing the street, little short burst, okay? When you trip and stumble, and this is where it becomes important that we think about training these muscles. When you're playing ping pong, right? It's that quick reaction, change in direction, so kudos ping pong players. If you're skipping or jumping, okay? And we have been doing jumping in some of our classes. You don't have to jump up and touch the sky, right? It can just be that little action. Any questions on that so far? It's all gonna come together, I promise. Okay, so this is just an image to give you a visual of the difference. On the far left picture, you have a marathon runner versus a sprinter. Wow, I got my words flipped around down here. I'll have to talk to my assistant. But you can see how the marathon runner is, physically looks different than the sprinter. The leg size difference, right? Same thing over here, marathon legs versus sprint cyclists. Massive, right? You tell these guys to go run 10 miles, not gonna happen. Right? They have a lot of fast twitch fibers. These folks up here have a lot of slow twitch fibers, more oxidative. So we're going to talk about the difference between endurance versus strength versus power. And again, I apologize that I don't have this in the correct order as I do with the title. Let's talk about endurance first, which is going to be in the middle. So that's the ability to perform a repeated contraction over a period of time. It's a sustained action. Submaximal force, you're not going all out. So this contraction is happening over and over again, maybe at, say, 60% of your maximal effort. That's why it's something that you can sustain. Strength is the maximal force in a single effort. How hard can that muscle contract just once? That's typically how they would measure strength. You may have heard or seen 1 RM, and that means 1 repetition max. There are other ways to measure it, but how much weight can you move once? Or can you do 8 bicep curls with a 15-pound weight, and then you can't do another single one with good form? That would be strength, pure strength. Different than endurance. Muscle power is the piece that we often miss or avoid as we get older. How much force can we generate in a short period of time? We don't like it because a lot of times it can be a little uncomfortable. And we want to have a good foundation of strength and endurance before we introduce power. Okay? You have to have a good foundation before you add the other layers. You want a good foundation of strength and endurance before you build in power. So, what do the studies show? Power training increased functional capacity related to fall risk more than any other exercise modality. So working on power reduced fall risk more so than just working on strength or just working on endurance. And power-based exercise reduced fall risk by 40%, and that was in a study of 8,000 older adults, so it was a good-sized study. So this is the direction a lot of the research is going. It's showing the importance of power. Why does it matter? How many of you have tried to get out of a low chair and you're like, I can't get out of this chair, but I can get out of a higher chair? It takes power to move your body weight quickly from that lower position up. Getting out of a chair without armrests. Catching yourself after a stumble or trip. There's a couple things going on. You need the speed, but you also need to be able to control your own body weight, and that's where the power piece comes in. Crossing a street quickly, if you pick up that pace, we talked about that with the fast twitch. And how often do we go to take a step and we think our foot's going to land a certain way and we land in a different way? Okay? We need to be able to react quickly. And so when we break down power, it's basically the speed at which we're moving the weight. Force times velocity. I apologize to any physicists out here. I'm keeping it really simple. Force, weight. Velocity, how quick am I moving it? All right, so power declines 2 to 3 times faster than endurance capacity with aging. So what this is already telling you is we're holding on to our endurance and we're losing power. When I say holding on to endurance, if you're using it. There's a neuromuscular disconnection. So also with aging, if you remember, we go back to the innervation, where the sensory and motor nerves. The motor nerves are feeding the type 2 muscle fibers less because they're not being used. Okay? If you don't use it, you lose it. And this is especially true when it comes to the nerves that feed the muscles. You can't use the muscles if you don't have a signal telling it to fire. We also have the signal. What is the speed of the signal from our brain through that motor neuron to that muscle? That pathway needs to be trained and it needs to be used. It's going to slow down. Think of it as a jungle trail. If you don't go through that trail regularly, it's going to get grown over and it's going to be harder to pass through. Then that signal is slowed getting to deliver to the muscle that then needs to contract. Okay, so when we train, think of it that we're training neuromuscularly. We're training the muscle and we're training the nerve. So we're training the signal that's going to the muscle. The SAID principle, I just threw this in here. It basically means your body adapts to the stress you put on it. If you don't put regular stress on it in a certain way, it's not going to learn and adapt. If you always go in the gym and you go to the chest press and you do 40 pounds, you're not making any improvement. You're not adapting anymore. You've gotten used to it. Your body's like, oh yeah, I do this in a straight line. I could do this all day, right? What if you tried to increase the weight a little bit and push it out fast and come back slow? There's ways to change it. And we can't do the same training program all the time. You adapt, you get good at it, and then you're not making changes. It feels good, right? If we ran 3 miles every day, pretty soon it gets easier to run that 3 miles, okay? But you get to a point where you're not improving your cardiovascular health anymore, unless maybe you add some hills or go a little further. Not that any of us are running 3 miles, but you get the idea. You need to train power to use power. But I can't stress this enough, and it'll come up over and over in the slides. You can't train power without a good foundation. It's not safe. Your foundation means you have to have a good base of conditioning before you add power training. And I'm going to talk about what some examples of power training are. Some measures that they use for the lower body for power training are the 30-second sit to stand, which many of you have done that before. If it's less than 8 repetitions, it shows that you're at an increased risk for falls. Think of your falls risks as a stack of books. 1 or 2, it's not going to tip over, but if you gradually increase risk factors, pretty soon that stack of books isn't as stable. Because you already have one risk factor, age. Can't control that, right? But you want to minimize your risk factors, is my point. Keep that stack low. There's another test, if you will. It's called a 5-repetition chair stand. Do 5 sit-to-stands as fast as you can safely. If it takes you more than 12 seconds, you're at an increased risk of falls. If you use your hands, it negates the test. These tests are based on no hand assist. Okay? These slides will be available on Touchtown also eventually when I figure out how to do that, which I will, but they will be on Touchtown. So, something to think about. The sit-to-stand test can predict falls. Why? It's measuring type 2 or your fast twitch muscle fiber function. Your daily step count isn't measuring power. It's your type 1 muscle fibers, which is great. You need them. But it's just like anything. Your health and fitness takes a multifactorial approach. You can't just go all in one area. You need strength, you need endurance, you need power. You need flexibility, you need balance. All right, so my safety spiel. Power training isn't for everyone, right? You are not going to work on power sit-to-stands if you have arthritis in your knees. If it hurts every time you do it, you may not be able to, okay? Again, we need a good foundation. We want to master the movement itself before adding speed, okay? Speed is a higher level. That adding power is a higher level of training. We always start with body weight and stop if sharp, joint pain, dizziness, chest pain, et cetera, right? I hope you all know that. Okay, any questions up to this point? All right, so I'm going to give you some examples of different power exercises. They are not all for the lower body. Many are, but not all. And again, these will be available on Touchtown, so maybe in a few days. So the first one I was talking about, the power sit to stand. You sit in a chair, you stand up as fast as possible under control. When we train power, it is always under control. And what you're doing there is you're moving your body weight as fast as you can. So again, that muscle fiber action, it's fast. And then you sit down. You rest for 30 seconds. You do it again. Maybe you do that 5 times. When we're training power, you want a full recovery. For some people, it may take you 60 seconds because you want each repetition that you do to be full power. You don't want to start out at 100% and then your second one's at 80% and your third one's at 60%. You want them all at like 95%, each one that you do. So you're not, if you were going to do 10 of them in a row, now we're talking maybe a little bit more strength and endurance, not so much power. So your reps and your rest are different from then when you're training strength and endurance. And I love this picture, by the way, because it highlighted legs, glutes, and abs, or your core. All that is involved in a sit to stand. It's not just your leg strength. The next thing that you have available to you at either fitness center is the Hurst strength training equipment. It is pneumatic, meaning compressed air provides the resistance. Because of that, you can train power smoothly going out and then coming back down, pressing out and coming back. So if I was doing a chest press, if I can do 10, that's probably too light to train power. I would increase the weight, push it out fast, come back slow and easy. There needs to be enough resistance that I'm not like pushing the handles out of my hands and it's bouncing off the end of the machine. That means there's not enough weight on there, okay? And again, this is something Jeannie and I can help you figure out. But the great thing is with pneumatic equipment, since it's not the cable and pulley system, which can use momentum, pneumatics, you can train upper body chest press, row. We can do power on all that, as well as the leg press. But I wanted to show how you could involve some of the upper body muscles. Stair power climbs. If you climb X amount of stairs as quickly as possible. So you might only climb 5 stairs, but it's at your 80 to 90% effort. If you start fading, that's it. You come back down, you rest, maybe 30 to 60 seconds, do it again. I put a picture of a gentleman here on a bench step because another option would be to put your foot up on the step and then power yourself up. Again, under control though. We can't be flailing around or off balance. That's not control. That's where you'd want to back up, master the movement first. May take a couple months. Sure beats an injury though. All right, who's been to the balance obstacle course? Have we done these? Okay, so this is a power exercise, medicine ball slams. In the balance obstacle course, we do it for a minute, so that's not really power. But if we were to do as hard as we can for maybe 3 slams, rest for a minute, do 3 more, now we're talking power. One thing you may have noticed here when I'm talking about repetitions, when we train power, there's not a lot of repetitions, right? When we're doing 2 sets of 10 on the chest press, that's more strength. And by the way, when you hit 10, it should be hard to do 11 and 12. If it's not, you're not really getting strength. You might be getting a little bit of endurance, a little bit. But if you could do, like I said, you do 10 and you could easily do 5, 10 more, I'm sorry, you're not really training strength. It's not heavy enough to do that. If that's you building your foundation, that is fine. I've talked about that. We have to have a good foundation. We can't walk into the gym after 2 months of doing nothing and try to be pushing as hard as we can for 10 repetitions. That doesn't work. You got to have a good foundation first. So, a couple key points. Safety always first, build a strong foundation. I cannot emphasize that enough. I don't want to see, or I shouldn't say see, hear someone come to me and say, I went to your presentation, I hadn't been in the gym in months, and I did this, and I hurt my shoulder. No, you got to have a foundation. It may take you a couple months to build that. Your joints, your ligaments, your tendons, they all need to adapt. Your muscles need to adapt. Okay? Prep yourself for it. Walk before you run. And then you could incorporate power just a couple times a week. Power is not something you would do every day. Okay? But again, that path in the jungle, if you never use it, it's all grown over, your body's not going to know how to get through it. You have to train power to use power. So really, to summarize up everything that we've talked about today, why walking doesn't prevent falls. Walking is predictable, rhythmic, low force. Type 1 muscle fibers. Catching a fall, unpredictable. Explosive, just like training power. At high force, similar to training power. Okay? All right. So, they of you nodding off, there's a test. Just kidding. Any questions? I actually kept it pretty short today. Yes, Therese, in the back. And I'll repeat the questions.
So, I have had numerous phone calls from agencies and a couple that I've talked to. So, I don't know what company Hearthstone is contracting with, or are they, to give us some help?
Okay, so I'm not sure if Teresa's asking about physical therapy here at the Hearthstone. Empower Me is the company that is here at the Hearthstone that is now working downstairs in the therapy gym. The lead therapist, her name is Aran. She is here more and more. Aran. And I can talk to you separately. So, yes, Jay.
It's smart ass, but to me, Mother Nature is saying run or you die.
So she's saying Mother Nature is saying run or you die. I went to a training early on in my fitness professional life, and basically the instructor said if we always move slow, we'll react slow. Train slow, react slow. So just think about that. You know, when we get old, as we get older, we like to stay comfortable. I shouldn't even say as we get older. Take that piece out of it. We like to be, you know, we don't want to breathe hard. We don't want to get all sweaty. You know, get a little shaky from lifting weights, right? You have to get a little uncomfortable to make gains and improvements. And we have to do that in different ways. You know, that's the thing. We get stuck into our routine. I walk around Green Lake 3 days a week. Great. Do you go to the gym and lift a little bit too? Do you maybe take the stairs occasionally? You know what I mean? It can't just be the one thing. And we did a hike last month, and there were some folks who have been walking regularly, but as soon as they had that uphill, their legs didn't react very well. It was a different experience because they haven't been using their body in that way. Okay? So you've got to move your body how you want it to be. And I know it's not easy and it's not always fun. Might not be something you enjoy doing, but then you try to find a way. I know there's plenty of ping pongers in here. You know, maybe you go to the pool and you try to do some sprints in the pool, or you're able to do some jumps in the pool because you can't do them on land because of your joints. Or you do a few quick sit-to-stands. Those muscles, get them firing quickly, so when you need them, they're there. You know, we're just trying to train for life. So I will stick around unless there's any other questions, but I'll stick around for a bit. Yeah, I kept this one kind of short so I wouldn't overwhelm. Yes?
When you say walking predictable, rhythmic, what if you walk on uneven surfaces or hiking or something like that? Does that change the value of a walk?
So the question is, does it change the value of a walk if you're not on a level, predictable surface? And the answer would be yes. I mean, because like if you're hiking, walking over stones, you know, various terrain, definitely gonna help, especially the uphill, the constant changing directions. All right, so what are you gonna do different tomorrow? I mean, that's just a question I'd like to kind of ask yourself. You took the time out to come here today. What are you gonna do different?
You wore me out, I'm going to bed.
Bev said she's going to take a nap. But I mean, just think about it. It might be just a matter of doing a few quick sit-to-stands. It doesn't have to be huge and overwhelming. I bet you everyone in here has time to maybe do 2 quick sit-to-stands a few times a day, if that is in your capability. And that's what I challenge you to do. I love that you're here, but now what are you going to do with the information? And that's on you. I got 2 questions. Bev, real quick.
We have twin grandsons who swim. One is a sprinter, one is long distance. Do they have different muscles or?
She said she has twin grandsons. One of them's a sprinter and one of them's long distance in swimming, and they're built differently, similar to those pictures that were up earlier. Yeah, your body metabolizes differently, uses oxygen differently. All right, one last question, Jay? Or 2?
If we take the Tuesday, Thursday sail class, is that enough to qualify?
The question is, if you take the Tuesday, Thursday sail class, is that enough to qualify? The answer is no. It is a component, but it is not training power. Good question.
Is there an advantage to taking, if you're walking steps, to take 1 step or to take 2 steps at a time?
Climbing stairs, you mean?
Climbing stairs.
Okay, climbing the stairs. Is there an advantage to taking 1 stair at a time or 2 stairs at a time? I would say most people here can't take 2, so if you can take 1, that's a win. If you have the ability to go 2, definitely more power, if you can do that safely.
If you structure your walk, we're doing kind of an endurance thing, and then for a couple of minutes you speed up and go really fast, is that considered power?
So the question is, if you are out on your endurance walk and you put in little bursts of speed, is that considered power? For our situation, the answer would be yes, because you're moving your body weight at a faster velocity. Even better yet, if you could add an incline to that, but that is one way. All right, I'll stick around to answer some questions. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Wonderful to see you all. And the resource slide will be posted on Touchtown, the article up top.